Alright, next one, you guys, and it's How to Rock CeeLo Part 1. And I'm splitting it. I know it's How to Rock CeeLo is aired every time as one, but the thing is, you can split up. You can determine where each episode splits up. And yeah, I can tell where the split happened with these two episodes and can separate one from the other. And I really like this episode. I think that this is probably the best episode Nick gave us of the show so far. And I also think that it's maybe one of the best Nick shows we got in a while, this episode. So here's the plot. Gravity 5 is preparing for the talent show, and the person preparing for the talent show as well. At the same time, Casey's more preoccupied with trying to get tickets to the sold-out CeeLo concert. Let me just say this very quickly. Actually, I'll save this for the next part, since CeeLo's not all that featured in this episode, but in the next one, I'll save this little thing I want to point out for the next episode. We have Gravity 5 attempting to win the radio contest, and they do so by, during March's history class, he teaches history only, so, during March's history class, she's whispering on the cell phone, and they're answering the questions. In fact, there are a couple of answers they don't know, because they're dated. The questions are dated. And the fact that I know the answers to the questions are like, yeah, in the most part, I know the answer to the Journey question. I don't know the answer to the Bare Naked Ladies one. I didn't right away. The fact that I knew, pretty much knew the answers to those questions, I think was pretty damn funny. Because the fact that they're a little younger than me, the actors on this show, and they don't know the answers, and their characters don't know the answers to these questions. That's funny to me. Because, in a way, it kind of addresses that satirical idea of how, teenagers today are so out of touch with the old-fashioned stuff that had so much more quality to it. I love those meta jokes and satirical meta jokes. You can tell I love the Scream movies because of those. Or in the most part, the first two and the fourth one. Third one is alright. I digress. And another quick digression. That episode of Sam and Cat where they were watching that show about the cross-dressing family. The males dressed up like females, the females dressed up like males. And so then one of the computer has a banana on it instead of an apple or a pear. And so then Sam points out to Cat, look, they can't use pear products on TV, so they replace them with bananas instead. That's funny, because they replaced the apples with pears in all of Dan Schneider's other shows. So, that works. The fact that they were able to address that and make fun of it, that is something to admire. But I digress. Also, I would have thought that if they'd made a joke in How to Rock in which either Nelson or Kevin said, there's a show on TV that had characters who loved a game called Angry Birds. That's an obvious rip-off of Furious Pigeons. That would have been pretty damn funny, because it would have indicated the fact that, hey, we're ripping off Angry Birds, so a new version of Angry Birds is ripping off us. This fictional version of Angry Birds is ripping off us. So Angry Birds is ripping off us. That kind of thing. Once again, I digress. So March ends up winning the tickets by mistake. Instead of them. So Nelson creates fake backstage passes for them to get in, which don't work because Nelson's too nervous and he kind of tips off the guard. The guard's the same guy who played the mall cop in A Part-Time Job. He just has that very overdramatic tone to him. He takes his job too seriously. And it actually kind of works here. It didn't really work in A Part-Time Job, not at all. But it works here. For some reason, because they're not I don't know, taking it as seriously this time. And then they end up dressing themselves up as food workers or cooks to try and sneak in. The guard figures them out once again, and the rest of the episode is basically him chasing them down. And that actually felt more believable to me than anything else that Nick tried to do in the show. And then Molly's reaction to there's also a part of the plot where Molly is denying Grace the chance to sing a solo because she wants to solo all to herself, and she's pushing Grace away. That's interesting. And they play that out more in the second part. I'm not going to get into it now, but they do play it out more in the second part. And we get to the point where by the end of the episode, well, you've seen it, you know what happens. And then, like, Molly's reaction to when it happens. She's at the concert with Grace. They're in, like, the front row. Molly's reaction is priceless. And in this case, her kind of pouting and moping around at the end, as been indicated in the other episodes, it has more of a purpose this time. And you think to yourself, the circumstances, that should put the final nail in the coffin. I mean, she can never shit on Gravity 5 ever again after this happens. Although there's a moment at the end of that part where she's given that kind of glimmer of hope, like, I'm done for, I'm finished. Oh, I'm not! That would have felt like, I'm so happy about it. That worked to me. So, it's a really, really good episode. I was pretty satisfied with the way it turned out. Granted, what's interesting is this is, the way I'm thinking about this is like with Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2. Part 1 had the exposition, while Part 2 had had all the action. In this case, it's reversed, and it actually works in that sense. And actually, I loved Deathly Hallows Part 1 more than Deathly Hallows Part 2 because it had more story, more detail to it, more exposition. Because I'm a person who pays a lot of attention to details, and if you have a great story, and if you keep me invested in the story, it'll really, really work for me. In Deathly Hallows Part 2, I still liked it, but it didn't have that oomph with the story with that its predecessor did. So with that being said, CeeLo Part 1 works well. I will see you guys at the next one.